Is Joe Manchin the last honest Democrat? I want to talk about Manchin and his role in the infrastructure bill. But this is a guy, by the way, who has been proving himself to break with the Democrats on a bunch of critical issues. Every Democrat voted to support taxpayer-funded abortions. Joe Manchin was the only Democrat to join all the Republicans in voting against it. Every Democrat voted for critical race theory. Joe Manchin is the only Democrat to join the Republicans in supporting Tom Cotton's bid to ban a federal ban on critical race theory. And now infrastructure. Now, there are two infrastructure bills. There is a smaller, sort of the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which, by the way, a bunch of Republicans voted for. It's passed the Senate. It's now being moved over to the House. My guess is that this bill is likely to pass, and pass with Republican support. And it will be obviously a victory for Joe Biden. He's going to go, see, we can work together. This shows that bipartisanship does work. And of course, there are Republicans who also want it to work. Here is John Thune, Republican from South Dakota. He goes, quote, "If you're a Republican, you want to prove that you're not just here to completely block and stop the entire agenda." And my question is, why not? If you're a Republican, you're in the opposition party, why aren't you here to oppose, to block, particularly if you think that the bill is bad? Now, it's possible that these Republicans think that the bill is okay, or they think it is a genuine infrastructure bill, not really a Green New Deal bill, which for the most part it is. We're talking now about the smaller infrastructure bill. Or the Republicans think that if we pass it, it will make a larger bill more difficult to pass. Or they think that by showing a gesture of bipartisanship, they will be forestalling things like getting rid of the filibuster. The Democrats, in other words, their appetite for doing more extreme things will be curbed if they can see that small progress can be made, at least on certain things. But I think for the Democrats, it's not about any of this. Their goal is to use the kind of momentum of the first bill, the $1.2 trillion bill, to pass a much bigger $3.5 trillion bill. Now, first of all, this whole thing, I think, is demented, because far from talking about whether we should be spending more money or less money, we should really be talking about how to save money. It's almost like if you're a guy and you've just gone through a kind of a family emergency, you've been spending down your savings, you've had a kind of a crisis, a COVID crisis that's lasted now over a year, you've drained some of your resources, you've put out money you didn't expect to put out. Well, what do? You kind of go into savings mode. You go into frugality mode. You don't say, okay, well, now the crisis seems to be passing. And my situation is far worse. I'm going to spend even more money that I can't afford to spend. So this is downright reckless. But even among recklessness, there's a degree of recklessness. And here's where Manchin, I think, comes in. So Manchin has issued a statement saying that this new $3.5 trillion bill is just a no-go. Now, it may seem that Manchin is kind of playing a double game here, because he did vote to advance debate on the bill. But he makes it really clear in the statement. He goes, listen, if I advance debate on the bill, it's only so we can look at this and consider it. He goes, I'm quoting him now, adding trillions of dollars to more than nearly $29 trillion of national debt without consideration of the negative effects on our children and grandchildren. He goes, that's one of the decisions that's become too easy in Washington. He goes, this will have grave consequences. Quote, it is simply irresponsible to continue spending at levels more suited to respond to a Great Depression or a Great Recession, not an economy that's on the verge of overheating. So the bottom line of it is Manchin, I think, here is going to do some block and tackle, and we do need him to do that. Why do we need him so badly? And we also do need, by the way, it'd be good to have cinema along with Manchin, but why do we need them? Well, if you think back to it, we need them because we lost those 2 seats in Georgia. Had we not lost those seats in Georgia post-election, none of this would even be an issue. So Manchin is kind of like our Spartan standing in the pass, blocking, if you will, all the really bad stuff from going through. And it looks like this is a man with honesty and with resolve. This is a man who's going to come through. Debbie kind of says, well, If he's really the last honest Democrat, shouldn't he become a Republican? She's like, send him your movies, Dinesh, which I probably should do. But Manchin is also known sometimes to try to find middle ground. And my worry about Manchin is that he will drive a hard bargain with the Democrats. They'll take their $3.5 trillion bill and probably scale it back. But hey, would it become a responsible bill at $3 trillion? No. At $2 trillion? No. At $1 trillion? No. Because we already have the other bill with $1.2 trillion of spending. And so my message to Manchin is don't just hang tough. Essentially, don't just vote against this one. It's particularly the case that if you support the more modest infrastructure bill, a bill that is aimed at bridges and tunnels and utilities and other basic infrastructure, okay, that's it. We've done it. Infrastructure is now done. And it's not a matter of trying to find middle ground with these guys. This is I think it was P.J. O'Rourke who said that giving the government money is like giving, whiskey and car keys to teenage boys. The Democrats are in this reckless spending mode with no real attention to the welfare of the country. And you, Joe Manchin, can be the man to stop them.